first cassette I ever found was labeled Marcus, January 1989, in my mother's handwriting. I stood in my parents' attic, covered in 30 years of dust, holding a piece of plastic that would unravel everything I thought I knew about my family, about myself, about the two people who raised me in that cold, immaculate house where affection was rationed like wartime supplies. I did not confront them that night. I did not call my wife. I did not do anything except sit on the attic floor for 3 hours, surrounded by 400 cassette tapes, each one labeled with a name I had never heard spoken in my entire 39 years of life. Marcus, my brother, the one they told me died at birth. I should have seen it coming. The signs were always there, hidden in plain sight like a frequency just below human hearing. You do not notice it until someone points it out, and then you cannot unhear it ever again. That morning started like any other Saturday. My father had called the week before, asking if I could come by and help digitize some old family recordings. Home movies, he said, reel-to-reel tapes from the 70s. He knew I had the equipment, knew I had spent 20 years building a career as an audio engineer and sound producer. What he did not know was that I would find the false wall. My name is Daniel Reed, and at 39 years old, I had built exactly the life my parents expected. A nice house in the suburbs, a patient wife named Sarah who had learned to navigate my emotional unavailability with grace. A successful studio where I restored audio for documentaries, podcasts, and occasionally the FBI when they needed someone to clean up surveillance recordings. I was good at finding hidden sounds, pulling voices out of static, making the inaudible audible. The irony is not lost on me. Growing up, I always knew something was wrong with our family. Not wrong in a dramatic way, not wrong in a way that would make the neighbors talk. Just off, like a photograph hung slightly crooked that no one ever bothers to straighten. My parents never hugged me, not once in 39 years. They provided everything a child could need materially. Private school, music lessons, summer camps, college tuition paid in full. But physical affection was treated like a foreign concept, something other families did, something that did not belong in our house. I used to think they were just cold people, reserved. New England stock, my mother would say, as if that explained everything. We show love through action, not empty gestures. But it was more than that. There was a distance in their eyes whenever they looked at me, a hesitation, like they were afraid to get too close, like they were waiting for something terrible to happen. And once a month, every month, for as long as I could remember, they would send me to my grandmother's house for the weekend. No explanation, no negotiation. Just pack your bag, Daniel, Grandma is expecting you. I asked once, when I was maybe 7 or 8, why I had to go so often. My mother's face went pale. My father's jaw tightened. The silence lasted so long I thought I had broken something. Finally, my father said, "Some things are not for children to understand." I never asked again. Grandma passed away when I was 16. After that, the monthly weekends stopped. But the distance remained. The careful choreography of a family that looked normal from the outside but felt hollow on the inside. I spent my 20s trying to understand it. Therapy helped some. I learned words like emotional neglect and attachment disorder. I learned that not all abuse leaves bruises. I learned that some parents are simply incapable of love, and that it was not my fault. But I never learned the truth. Not until that Saturday morning in the attic. The day was unremarkable in every way. October in Connecticut, the leaves just starting to turn. I drove the 40 minutes to my parents' house in Westbrook, the same white colonial where I grew up. The same manicured lawn. The same American flag hanging by the front door. My father met me in the driveway. At 72, Harold Reed still carried himself like the successful businessman he was. Owner of 3 car dealerships. Member of the Chamber of Commerce. Deacon at the First Presbyterian Church. Respected. Admired. The kind of man who gets lifetime achievement awards and has buildings named after him. "Daniel," he said, extending his hand for a handshake. Not a hug. Never a hug. "Thank you for coming." "Of course, Dad. The tapes are in the attic. Your mother's resting, so try to keep the noise down." Margaret Reed, my mother, was always resting. She had perfected the art of being present without being available, occupying rooms without occupying conversations. At 70, she still maintained the figure and wardrobe of a woman who lunched with the right people and chaired the right committees. Her charity work was legendary in Westbrook. Food drives, scholarship funds, hospital wing dedications, the perfect family, the perfect image. "I know the way," I said. The attic had not changed since my childhood. Same exposed beams, same dusty boxes, same smell of old wood and mothballs. My father pointed to a stack of reel-to-reel tapes in the corner. "Those are the ones. Christmas 1974, I think. Maybe some birthday parties. Your mother wants them converted to digital before they deteriorate completely." "Should take a few hours," I said. "I will bring the equipment up from my car." "Good, good." He was already heading back down the stairs. "Let me know if you need anything." He did not offer to help. He never did. I spent the first hour setting up my portable workstation and going through the reels. Standard family recordings, just as my father described. Shaky footage of Christmases past. Birthday cakes. Backyard barbecues. I appeared in some of them. A solemn toddler who rarely smiled. But something was bothering me. A professional instinct. An acoustic anomaly. The attic had an echo. Not unusual for a space this size. But the echo was wrong. Truncated on one side. Like the room was smaller than it should be. I walked the perimeter, knocking on walls. Wood. And then, behind a stack of old furniture covered with sheets, something different. Something hollow. My heart rate increased. I told myself it was probably just a crawl space. Insulation. Ductwork. Nothing sinister. I moved the furniture aside. The wall behind it looked like all the others, painted the same faded white, covered with the same cobwebs. But when I pressed against it, it gave slightly. A seam. I found the edge and pulled. The false wall swung open on hidden hinges, revealing a space about 5 feet deep and 10 feet wide. And inside that space, on floor-to-ceiling shelves, were cassette tapes. Hundreds of them, maybe 400. Each one labeled with the same handwriting. My mother's handwriting. Marcus followed by a date. Marcus, January 1985. Marcus, June 1991. Marcus, December 2003. Marcus, March 2024. 7 months ago. My hands were shaking as I picked up the first tape. The plastic was cold, the label yellowed with age. I walked back to my workstation like a man in a dream. Inserted the cassette into the deck I had brought for testing. Put on my headphones. And pressed play. Static first. Then the sound of a phone ringing. 2 rings. 3. And then my father's voice. 30 years younger, but unmistakably him. "You know the rules, Marcus. I just wanted to wish him a happy birthday." Another voice. Male. Younger. Trembling with something between hope and resignation. "He is 5 today. 5 years old. I just wanted to." "What you want is irrelevant. We had an agreement." I know we did. But he is my brother. I have never even seen a picture of him since. And you never will. That was the deal. You stay away. You never contact him. You never try to see him. In exchange, we make sure you are taken care of. A long pause. Then the voice I would come to know as Marcus said, "Happy birthday, little brother. I hope one day you will know that I..." The recording cut to static. I sat there for what felt like hours. The headphones were still on, the static still hissing in my ears, but I could not move, could not breathe, could not process what I had just heard. I have a brother. I have a brother named Marcus, and my parents have been lying to me for 39 years. The rest of that day exists in fragments. I remember packing every single cassette into boxes. I remember carrying them down the attic stairs, through the house, past my mother's closed bedroom door. I remember loading them into my car with mechanical precision. My father appeared in the kitchen as I was making my last trip. "Finished already? That was fast. Found some water damage on a few reels," I heard myself say. "Going to have to treat them at the studio. Might take a few weeks. Whatever you think is best." He did not offer to look at what I was carrying. Did not seem to notice the boxes were different from the ones he had shown me. Your mother says hello, by the way. She is not feeling well enough to come down. Tell her I hope she feels better. Will do. Drive safe, Daniel. And I left. 400 tapes in my trunk. A lifetime of lies in the rearview mirror. I did not go home. I called Sarah and told her I would be late, that a project came up. Then I drove to my studio, a converted warehouse on the outskirts of New Haven, and I started listening. The tapes were organized chronologically. I began with the earliest, 1985, and worked forward. Each one was a recorded phone conversation between my father and Marcus. Some were short, just a few minutes. Others went on for nearly an hour. All of them painted a picture of a relationship I never knew existed. A horrifying picture. Marcus was born in 1981, 4 years before me. The tapes did not reveal what exactly was wrong with him at birth, but from the conversations, I gathered that he had some kind of visible condition. A facial difference of some kind. The details were never explicitly stated, as if even naming it was too shameful. What was explicit was my parents' solution. They sent Marcus away. He was 4 years old when they placed him with a family 3 states over. Paid them to raise him, paid them to keep quiet, and then told everyone, including future me, that their firstborn son had died at birth. It was the only way, my father said on one of the early tapes. You have to understand. Your mother could not bear it. The stares, the questions. She was not built for that kind of life. I was 4, Marcus responded. I remember the house. I remember my room. I remember Mom singing to me at night. That is exactly why this had to happen. You were old enough to remember, old enough to talk. We could not risk Daniel growing up with that influence. What influence? I am your son. I am his brother. You are a reminder of something we would rather forget. I listened to those tapes until 3 in the morning. Listened to Marcus grow up through phone calls. Birthdays where he would call hoping to hear news about me. Holidays where he would ask if he could visit. Milestones he would share, hoping for some connection, some acknowledgement. And every single time, my father would shut him down. The early tapes were mostly sadness. A child trying to understand why his parents abandoned him. A teenager bargaining for scraps of connection. But as Marcus got older, something shifted. The sadness calcified into something harder. Something angry. I could find him on my own, you know, Marcus said on a tape from 2001, when he would have been 20. The internet exists. I could look up his name, his school, his address. And what would that accomplish? My father's voice was colder now, more controlled. You would destroy his life. He thinks you are dead. He has built a life around that reality. Are you really selfish enough to take that away from him? Are you really heartless enough to keep taking from me? We take nothing. We provide. That apartment you live in? Paid. The job at the print shop? We know the owner. Your medical bills? Covered. Everything you have is because of us. Everything I have is because you are ashamed of me. A long silence. Then my father said, yes, we are. And that shame is your security. As long as we are ashamed, we have reason to keep you comfortable and keep you quiet. The moment you forget that, the moment you try to contact Daniel, all of this goes away. The conversation ended there, but the tapes continued. Year after year after year, Marcus kept calling. My parents kept answering. The negotiations continued, the threats evolved, but the fundamental arrangement remained unchanged. Stay away from Daniel. Stay invisible, and we will make sure you survive. It was nearly 4 in the morning when I found the tape that changed everything. Marcus, September 2019. Just 5 years ago. The conversation started like all the others. Pleasantries that were not pleasant. Updates that were not wanted. But then Marcus said something that made me sit up straight. I have been having some health issues. We are aware, my father said. We received the bills. The doctors think it might be genetic. Something hereditary. Pause. Longer than usual. What are you implying? I am not implying anything. I am telling you that if this is genetic, Daniel might have it too. He deserves to know. He deserves to get tested. Daniel is healthy. Daniel is 34. I was healthy at 34 too. The symptoms did not start until... This conversation is over. Dad, please. I am not asking to meet him. I am not asking to disrupt his life. I am asking you to tell him there is a medical history he needs to know about. That is it. Just the medical information. You do not even have to tell him about me. My father's voice went ice cold. If you ever bring this up again, I will end our arrangement. No more apartment. No more job. No more medical coverage. You will be on your own, Marcus. Completely alone. Is that what you want? What I want is for my brother to not die of something that could be prevented. Your brother is none of your concern. He is the only family I have. You have no family. You never did. The sooner you accept that, the easier this will be for everyone. The recording ended with a click. I sat in my studio, surrounded by equipment worth hundreds of thousands of dollars, and I cried. I cried for Marcus, the brother I never knew. I cried for myself, the brother who was kept in the dark. And I cried for the parents I thought I knew, the parents I was now realizing I had never known at all. They were not cold because they were emotionally unavailable. They were cold because they had done something unforgivable, and every time they looked at me, they saw the evidence of their own cruelty. I did not sleep that night. By morning, I had a plan. The first step was finding Marcus. The tapes gave me fragments. He lived somewhere in Pennsylvania. He worked at a print shop, or at least he had 20 years ago. He had a medical condition that required ongoing treatment. I was good at finding hidden things. It was literally my job. Took me 3 days. 3 days of cross-referencing, of searching databases, of using skills I had developed over 20 years in the audio forensics world. And finally, I found him. Marcus Reed. Age 43. Living in a small town called Millbrook, Pennsylvania. Population 8,000. Working at Millbrook Printing and Copy Services for the past 22 years. The same town. The same job. For more than 2 decades. He had never left because he had nowhere else to go. I called Sarah that night and told her everything. Played her some of the tapes. Watched her face go from confusion to horror to rage. My wife had always been patient with my family's coldness. Always excused their behavior as just the way they were. But this was different. You have to find him, she said. You have to meet him. I know. And then what? I had been thinking about that question for 3 days. And then what? Confront my parents? Expose them? What would that accomplish? They were in their 70s. Respected members of their community. It would be my word against theirs. The ramblings of a disturbed son against the reputation they had spent a lifetime building. But then I thought about Marcus. 40 years of isolation. 40 years of being told he did not exist. 40 years of watching his brother grow up from a distance. Forbidden to make contact. I do not know yet, I said. But I have to start somewhere. I drove to Millbrook on a Thursday. Called in sick to my studio. Told Sarah I would be back by the weekend. And made the 5-hour journey south. Millbrook was exactly what I expected. Small town America. Main street with local shops. A church on every corner. The kind of place where everyone knows everyone and strangers get noticed immediately. Millbrook Printing was on the edge of downtown. A small storefront with faded letters on the window. I parked across the street and waited. I did not know what I was waiting for. Part of me wanted to just walk in. Another part was terrified. What do you say to a brother you never knew you had? How do you explain 40 years of absence that was not your fault? At 12:15, a man walked out of the print shop and headed toward a diner 3 doors down. Even from across the street, I could see the facial difference the tapes had hinted at. His left cheek was flattened, the eye on that side slightly lower than the other. A birthmark, maybe, or some kind of developmental condition. It was noticeable but hardly shocking. The kind of thing a child might stare at but an adult would politely ignore. This was the monster my parents had hidden for 4 decades. This was the shame that could not be allowed to exist. I got out of my car and followed him to the diner. The Millbrook Diner was exactly what it sounds like. Formica counters, vinyl booths, coffee that had probably been sitting since morning. Marcus took a seat at the counter, ordered without looking at the menu, and pulled out his phone. I sat 2 stools down from him, ordered coffee, tried to figure out what to say. "You are not from around here." I looked up. Marcus was looking at me, not suspicious, just curious. Small-town reflexes. "No," I said, "just passing through." "Business or pleasure?" "Neither, really. More like a family matter." He nodded, turned back to his phone. The conversation should have ended there, but I could not let it. "Actually," I said, "I was wondering if you could help me. I am looking for someone who might live around here. An old family friend." Marcus looked up again. "What is the name?" "Reed. Marcus Reed." The change was instantaneous. His whole body went rigid. The phone slipped from his fingers and clattered on the counter. When he turned to face me fully, his eyes were wide with something between fear and recognition. "Who sent you?" His voice was barely a whisper. "Did they send you?" "No one sent me. I came on my own." "That is impossible. They would never let." He stopped, stared at me, really looked at me for the first time, and then his face crumpled. "Daniel." I nodded, could not speak, could barely breathe. "Daniel. Oh my God. Daniel." Tears were streaming down his face now. He made no move to wipe them away. "You look just like. You look exactly like." "I found the tapes," I managed to say. "All of them. For 100 cassettes." "The tapes." He laughed. A broken sound. "She kept them. I always wondered. Every year I would call and your father would say, 'Margaret is recording this for our records,' and I always wondered why. Now I know. Evidence. Insurance. In case I ever tried to. In case you ever tried to tell me." "Yes." We stared at each other. 2 strangers who shared half their DNA. 2 brothers who had been kept apart by shame and money and 40 years of lies. "I have a booth in the back," Marcus said finally. "We should talk. We have a lot to talk about." The next 4 hours were the most intense of my life. Marcus told me everything. His earliest memories of our house, memories I never had because I was too young. The day our parents told him he was going away, that it was just for a little while, that they would come visit him soon. The family who raised him, kind enough but distant, paid to provide care but not love. He told me about the phone calls, monthly at first, then less frequent. Our father's voice becoming more businesslike over the years, more transactional. Our mother rarely speaking, just listening, occasionally crying. He told me about trying to find me, about the private investigator he hired in 1998, the one who found my address and was then visited by my father's lawyer. About the threats that followed, the reminder that the arrangement only worked if Marcus stayed invisible. "I could have fought it," he said. "I know that now. I could have shown up at your house, knocked on your door. What were they going to do, call the police? I was not doing anything illegal." "Then why did you not?" Marcus looked down at his coffee, cold now, untouched for the past 2 hours. "Because I was afraid you would reject me, that you would see me and feel the same way they did, that the shame would be hereditary." "Marcus, I know it sounds pathetic. 40 years of staying away because I was afraid. But you have to understand, I did not know you. I only knew what they told me about you, that you were happy, that you were successful, that you had a good life, a life that did not include me. And I thought maybe they were right. Maybe I would just ruin everything by showing up." "They were not right," I said. "They were never right. I know that now." He looked up at me, and despite the tears, he was smiling. "You came to find me. After all this time, you came to find me. That is more than I ever hoped for." We talked until the dinner shift started and the waitresses began giving us looks. Then we went to Marcus's apartment, a small 1-bedroom above a hardware store, and we talked some more. He showed me photos, mementos, a birthday card I had apparently made him when I was 2 years old, retrieved from our house before he was sent away. "I took it with me," he said. "It was the only proof I had that I was ever part of the family." The card was made of construction paper, red and blue, with stick figures drawn in crayon. One big, one small. I could not read it too, but someone had helped me write the words. My handwriting, but not my spelling. Happy birthday, Marcus. I love you. I had loved him. 2 years old, I had loved my brother. And then they took him away, and I forgot he ever existed. The rage I felt in that moment was unlike anything I had experienced before. It was not hot, not explosive. It was cold, calculating, the kind of anger that does not burn out quickly because it is fueled by something deeper than emotion. They are going to pay for this, I said. Marcus shook his head. Daniel, I do not need revenge. I just needed to meet you. That is enough. It is not enough. Not for me. I pulled out my phone, showed him the calendar notification I had screenshotted before driving down. In 3 weeks, the Westbrook Chamber of Commerce is hosting their annual gala. Dad is receiving the Lifetime Achievement Award. 500 guests, local press, everyone who matters in that town. Okay. I think it is time they meet his other son. Marcus's face went pale. Daniel, I cannot. The way I look, the attention it would bring, I have spent 40 years avoiding exactly that kind of. That is exactly why you should do it. I leaned forward. They hid you because they were ashamed of how you look. They built their entire reputation on a lie, and they maintained that lie by keeping you invisible. The most powerful thing you can do is be seen. But the publicity, the questions. Let them ask questions. Let them see exactly who our parents really are. Not the community pillars. Not the church deacons. Not the charity organizers. The people who abandoned their child because his face did not match their image of perfection. Marcus was quiet for a long time. I watched the emotions play across his face. Fear, uncertainty, and underneath it all, something that looked almost like hope. They will try to stop us, he said finally. The moment they find out we have made contact, they will try to stop us. Let them try. You do not know what they are capable of. I am starting to. I thought about the tapes. 400 recordings of manipulation and control. But I am not the scared kid they raised anymore. And you are not the abandoned son they think they can keep hidden. Together, we are stronger than them. Marcus looked at me with an expression I could not quite read. And then slowly he smiled. Together, he said. I like the sound of that. I drove back to Connecticut the next morning with a plan and a new phone number saved in my contacts. Marcus and I agreed to stay in touch, to coordinate our approach, to move carefully until the time was right. I should have known my parents would move faster. 2 days after I got home, my father called. Daniel, we need to talk. His voice was different. The usual businesslike tone was gone, replaced by something harder, something dangerous. About what? I think you know about what. Your mother noticed some things missing from the attic. The cassettes. Of course. I do not know what you are talking about. Do not lie to me, son. We know you took them. And we know you have been to Pennsylvania. My blood went cold. How do you know that? That is not important. What is important is that you understand the situation clearly. What you are doing, what you are planning, it will destroy lives. Not just ours. Yours as well. My life is built on a lie, Dad. A lie you created. Your life is built on our protection. Everything you have, the career, the studio, the connections in the industry, do you think that happened by accident? We have been clearing paths for you since you were born, calling in favors, opening doors, and we can close them just as easily. Is that a threat? It is a statement of fact. Walk away from this, Daniel. Forget what you found. The tapes, the man in Pennsylvania, all of it. Some secrets are better left buried. He is not a secret, Dad. He is your son. My brother. He is a mistake. My father's voice cracked, just for a moment, before hardening again. A mistake we have spent 40 years managing. We will not let you undo everything because of some misguided sense of justice. You do not get to decide that anymore. We will see. The line went dead. I sat in my studio, staring at my phone, processing what had just happened. My father had threatened me. Actually threatened me. The man who never raised his voice, who never showed emotion, who conducted his entire life like a business transaction. I called Marcus. "They know," I said. "They know about Pennsylvania." I figured they would. "How?" "I do not know. Maybe someone saw me in Millbrook. Maybe they have been monitoring your mail or your phone." "That would not surprise me. They have always had ways of keeping tabs." "Marcus," they threatened me, said they could destroy my career, that they have been pulling strings for years. There was a pause. That tracks. When I was younger, every time I tried to do something on my own, a job, a relationship, something would always go wrong. Someone would show up with questions. Opportunities would vanish. I always thought it was bad luck. Now I think it was them. So what do? We do exactly what we planned, only faster, before they have time to regroup. Over the next 2 weeks, I learned exactly how far my parents were willing to go. Started small. Emails from clients, canceling projects with vague explanations. A bank error that briefly froze my business account. A notice from the city about permit issues with my studio, issues that had never existed before. Then it got personal. Sarah called me from work one afternoon, her voice shaking. Someone was here, a man. He said he was a private investigator, that he was looking into you for a client. He was asking questions about our marriage, our finances, whether you had been acting erratically. What did you tell him? Nothing. I told him to leave. But Daniel, the way he was asking, he was trying to make it sound like you were having some kind of breakdown. Like I should be concerned about your mental state. They were building a narrative. If I came forward with the truth about Marcus, they could claim I was unstable, delusional, that the whole story was a fabrication of a disturbed mind. I told Marcus about the investigator. His response was grim. They did the same thing to me in 2005. I started dating someone, a woman from my church. Within a month, she had been told that I was dangerous, that I had a history of violence, that my family had paid to keep it quiet. She broke things off immediately. They lied to her. They have been lying for 40 years. It is what they do. Then we need to lie better. The plan evolved. We could not just show up at the gala and expect to be heard. My parents had too much control, too many connections. They would have us removed before we could say a word. We needed leverage. We needed evidence that could not be dismissed or explained away. We needed to make them confess. I reached out to a colleague in the audio forensics world, someone who specialized in surveillance equipment. Within a week, I had what I needed. Microphones disguised as everyday objects. Recording devices that could capture conversations from across a room. The tools of my trade, repurposed for a different kind of investigation. The next step was getting my parents to talk, to admit what they had done, in their own words, on a recording they did not know existed. I went back to Westbrook on a Sunday afternoon, unannounced. My parents were in the living room when I let myself in, my mother reading, my father watching golf with the sound off. "Daniel." My mother's voice was carefully neutral. "We were not expecting you." "I know. I wanted to talk. About the tapes." My father turned off the television. His eyes were wary. "There is nothing to talk about." "I disagree." I sat down across from them, the recording device in my jacket pocket activated. "I want to understand. I want to know why." "Why what?" "Why you sent Marcus away. Why you lied to me. Why you spent 40 years paying a man to stay invisible." My mother made a small sound, almost a gasp. My father's jaw tightened. "Where is this coming from?" "I met him, Dad. I went to Pennsylvania and I met my brother. My living, breathing brother who you told me died at birth." "Daniel, I want to hear it from you. I want to hear you explain why." My mother started crying. Soft, quiet tears that ran down her cheeks without changing her expression. She had perfected the art of crying silently. I wondered how many years of practice that had taken. My father stared at me for a long moment, calculating, evaluating, deciding. "You want to know why?" he said finally. "Because we were young. Because we were scared. Because when Marcus was born and we saw what he looked like, your mother had a breakdown. She could not leave the house for months, could not look at him without crying. That is not his fault. Of course it is not his fault. But fault does not matter when you are living it. We tried, Daniel. For 4 years we tried to make it work. But the stares, the whispers, the way people looked at us, it was destroying your mother. Destroying our family. So you destroyed his life instead. We gave him a life, family, medical care, financial support, everything he needed to survive. Except parents, except a brother, except someone who actually loved him. My father's face hardened. You do not get to judge us. You do not know what it was like. Then tell me, make me understand. And he did. For the next hour, my father laid out the entire history of Marcus's exile. The decision to send him away, the arrangement with the family in Pennsylvania, the monthly payments, the recorded phone calls, kept as insurance in case Marcus ever decided to violate their agreement. He talked about the shame, the fear, the constant anxiety that someone would discover their secret. He talked about the sacrifices they made, the lies they told, the reputation they built on the foundation of their firstborn's invisibility. And through it all, my mother sat silent, tears still streaming, offering no defense. We did what we had to do, my father concluded. And if you had grown up with him in the house, if you had experienced what we experienced, you would understand. I would never understand. I stood up. And neither will anyone else, once they know the truth. What do you mean? The gala. 3 weeks from now. The Lifetime Achievement Award. I am going to stand on that stage in front of everyone who has ever respected you, and I am going to tell them exactly who you really are. My father rose too, his face flushed with anger. You would not dare. Watch me. I will cut you off. Completely. No inheritance. No connections. Nothing. I do not want your money. I never did. Your career is mine. Built with my hands, my skills, my reputation. Not yours. You think so? You think those government contracts just fell into your lap? You think the FBI started calling out of the blue? Everything you have, we made possible. Then unmake it. Burn it all down. I do not care anymore. My mother finally spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. Daniel, please. If you do this, you will destroy us. No, Mom. You destroyed yourselves. 40 years ago, when you chose your reputation over your son. I left without another word. The recording device in my pocket was still running. I had everything I needed. The next 2 weeks were warfare. My parents escalated. More emails to clients. More pressure on my bank. A letter from a lawyer accusing me of theft, presumably referring to the cassettes. Calls to Sarah's employer, suggesting she might want to reconsider her association with a man under investigation. I escalated too. I played the recording for Marcus. We decided it was time to prepare our own documentation. Photos of Marcus as a child, retrieved from his foster family. Financial records showing the payments my parents had made over the decades. Medical records proving that Marcus's condition was never dangerous, never contagious, never anything except cosmetic. And of course, the tapes. 400 recordings of 40 years of cruelty. 3 days before the gala, I received an unexpected visitor. I was working late at the studio when the buzzer rang. The security camera showed a woman in her 60s, well-dressed, familiar-looking but not immediately recognizable. I opened the door. Mr. Reed? Daniel Reed. Yes. My name is Patricia Hensley. I was a friend of your mother's many years ago. May I come in? I hesitated. How do you know my mother? We grew up together. Before she was Margaret Reed, she was Margaret Donnelly. We were roommates in college. Something about her tone made me step aside. She came in, looked around my studio with interest, and settled into a chair I offered. I heard about what is happening, she said. The gala, the confrontation you are planning. How did you hear about that? I still have friends in Westbrook. Friends who talk. She looked at me directly. I also know about Marcus. I went still. What do you know? I know he is alive. I know your parents sent him away. I knew at the time, actually. Your mother told me back when it happened. She was looking for someone to tell her she was doing the right thing. And what did you tell her? Patricia Hensley's face was sad. I told her she was making a mistake she would regret for the rest of her life. We did not speak again after that. Why are you here now? Because you deserve to know the full story. Not just the version your father told you. Not the version they have convinced themselves is true. She told me about my mother's pregnancy. The excitement, the preparation, the joy, and then the birth. Marcus arriving 6 weeks early, the complications, the discovery of his condition. It was something called Treacher-Collins syndrome, Patricia said. A genetic condition affecting facial development. Can vary in severity. In Marcus's case, it was moderate, visible but manageable. With surgery, with therapy, he could have lived a perfectly normal life. But my parents, your mother fell apart. I have never seen anything like it. It was not just disappointment. It was complete psychological breakdown. She could not bond with him, could not look at him. The doctors talked about postpartum depression, about trauma, about therapy. But your father did not believe in any of that. He believed in solutions. Solutions like making Marcus disappear. Yes, he found a family willing to raise a child with special needs, paid them generously, and told everyone the baby had died, including Margaret's family, including their friends, including everyone who had seen her pregnant. How is that even possible? To hide a living child? It was 40 years ago, different times, less documentation, more privacy, and your father was very good at managing information, even then. Why did no one question it? Some people did. I did, but I was pressured to stay quiet. Threatened, actually. Your father made it clear that if I said anything, he would destroy me professionally. And I believed him. She looked down at her hands. I have regretted my silence every day since. Then help me now. Come to the gala. Be a witness. Patricia shook her head. I cannot. I am sorry. I have my own family to protect, my own reputation. But I can give you something else. She reached into her purse and pulled out an envelope. Letters, she said. From your mother to me, written in the years after Marcus was sent away. She wrote constantly at first, confessing, justifying, trying to convince herself she made the right choice. And then, eventually, just grieving. I opened the envelope. Pages and pages of handwritten text. My mother's elegant script filling every margin. Patricia stood to leave. Whatever you decide to do, you will have my support. Even if I cannot say so publicly. Thank you. She paused at the door. You know, when you were born, your mother called me. Just once. She said, he is perfect. He is absolutely perfect. And I remember thinking, that is not how a mother should describe her child. A child should not have to be perfect to be loved. The letters were devastating. I read them over 2 nights, unable to sleep, unable to look away. They were the other side of the story. My father's version had been clinical, businesslike. This was raw emotion, pain, guilt, and underneath it all, a love that had been suppressed but never eliminated. My mother loved Marcus, even after she sent him away. Even after she convinced herself it was necessary. She loved him, and that love had been eating her alive for 40 years. There were passages where she described watching me grow up, seeing Marcus in my face, in my expressions, in the way I moved. There were passages where she talked about the monthly phone calls, how she would listen to Marcus's voice and then lock herself in her room for hours afterward. And there was one passage near the end that stopped me cold. Sometimes I think about what would have happened if we had kept him, if we had been stronger, if we had chosen love over appearances. I imagine Marcus and Daniel growing up together, playing in the backyard, going to school together, looking out for each other the way brothers do. And then I remember that I am the one who made that impossible. I am the one who destroyed my family to save my reputation. And I know that I deserve every moment of this pain. My mother knew. She had always known, and she had done nothing. I called Marcus that night. I have something you need to see, I said. Letters from Mom. From after she sent you away. A long pause. I do not know if I want to see those. You need to. Before the gala. Before we do this. Another pause. Okay, come down tomorrow. We will read them together. I drove to Millbrook the next morning. Marcus's apartment felt smaller somehow, more cramped with both of us inside it. But there was nowhere else this conversation could happen. I handed him the letters. He read for hours, stopping occasionally to wipe his eyes, to compose himself, to process another revelation. When he finished, he looked at me with an expression I had never seen before. She loved me, he said. In her own twisted way, she actually loved me. Yes, that makes it worse. I know. If she did not care, I could hate her. If she was just cold, just cruel, I could write her off as a monster. But this, he held up the letters. She knew what she was doing. She knew it was wrong. She did it anyway, and then she spent 40 years in hell because of it. Does that change anything about what we are planning? Marcus was quiet for a long time. I watched him struggle, watched the emotions play across his face. No, he said finally. It does not change anything, because she never fixed it. She never came to find me. She never stood up to Dad. She chose her guilt over her son, and that is still a choice. Then we are still doing this. We are still doing this. The night of the gala arrived like any other October evening. Cold but not freezing. Stars visible through the thin cloud cover. A perfect night for the most important event of the Westbrook social calendar. The Westbrook Country Club had been transformed. White tablecloths, crystal glasses, a string quartet playing in the corner. 500 of the town's most prominent citizens, dressed in their finest, gathered to honor one of their own. Harold Reed, entrepreneur, philanthropist, community leader, monster. I arrived early, dressed in a suit I had bought specifically for this occasion. Sarah was with me, holding my hand, reminding me to breathe. You sure about this? She asked. More sure than I have ever been about anything. Marcus was waiting in the parking lot. He had made the drive from Pennsylvania that afternoon, stopping to buy a suit of his own. He looked nervous but determined. Ready? I asked. No, but let us do it anyway. We walked into the country club together. The reaction was immediate. Whispers, stares, people nudging each other and pointing at the unfamiliar man at my side, the one with the obvious facial difference. We found seats at the back of the room, away from the main tables. The program said my father's award presentation would be at 9 o'clock. We had 2 hours to wait. They felt like the longest hours of my life. I watched my parents work the room. My father, shaking hands, slapping backs, accepting congratulations with practiced humility. My mother, graceful as always, smiling at appropriate moments, complimenting appropriate people. They had not seen us yet. The crowd was too thick, the lighting too dim. But they would see us soon enough. At 8:45, the chamber president took the stage and began his introduction. He talked about my father's contributions to Westbrook, the jobs created, the charities supported, the example set for future generations of business leaders. I felt Marcus tense beside me. Harold Reed is not just a successful businessman, the president concluded. He is a pillar of this community, a man of integrity, a man who has always put family first. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming this year's recipient of the Lifetime Achievement Award. The room erupted in applause. My father rose from his seat, buttoned his jacket, and made his way to the stage. And that was when I stood up. Before you accept that award, I said, loud enough to carry over the clapping, there is something this room needs to know. The applause died. Heads turned. My father froze mid-stride, his face going pale as he recognized me. And then he recognized Marcus. Daniel, he said, his voice barely controlled. This is not the time or place. This is exactly the time and place. I moved forward, Marcus beside me. The crowd parted around us like the Red Sea. You are about to receive an award for your integrity, for putting family first. I think these people deserve to know what that family actually looks like. I reached the front of the room. The stage lights were blinding, but I could see my mother in the crowd, her face white, her hands gripping the tablecloth. "This is my brother," I said, gesturing to Marcus. "His name is Marcus Reed. He is 43 years old, and for the past 40 years he has been hidden, paid to stay invisible, threatened into silence. All because our parents were ashamed of the way he looks." The murmuring started immediately. I pressed on. "When Marcus was 4 years old, my parents told everyone he had died at birth. They sent him to live with a family in another state. They recorded every phone call, kept every piece of evidence, made sure he could never tell anyone the truth." I pulled out my phone. "I have 400 cassette tapes documenting 40 years of manipulation. I have letters from my mother admitting what she did. I have financial records showing decades of payments to keep Marcus quiet." My father's composure cracked. "This is ridiculous. Daniel has clearly had some kind of episode. Someone call security." "No need," I said. "We will leave peacefully, after Marcus has his say." I stepped aside. Marcus moved forward, into the spotlight, facing the crowd that had never known he existed. "Hello," he said. His voice was steady, but I could see his hands trembling. "I know you do not know me. I have spent my entire adult life making sure of that, because I was told, over and over, that my existence would ruin everything my parents had built." He looked at our father. "But standing here now, I realize something. You did not hide me to protect your reputation. You hid me because you could not handle being the parents of a child who was not perfect. And that shame, that cowardice, has defined both of our lives." Our mother made a sound, a sob, but she did not move, did not speak. "I am not here for revenge," Marcus continued. "I am here because I deserve to be seen, because my brother deserves to know the truth, and because this town, this community that has celebrated my parents for decades, deserves to know exactly who they are celebrating." He turned to the crowd. "Look at me. Look at my face. This is what they were so ashamed of. This is what was worth 40 years of lies. And when you look at me, I want you to ask yourselves, would you have done the same thing? Would you have thrown away your child because he did not look like a perfect Reed?" The silence was absolute. And then, slowly, someone started clapping. I turned to see who it was. Patricia Hensley, standing in the back of the room, applauding alone. And then the woman next to her joined in. And then another, and another. Within 30 seconds, half the room was on their feet, applauding not for my father, but for the son he had tried to erase. My father looked around, his face shifting from anger to confusion to something like fear. My mother was crying openly now, making no effort to hide it. I walked to the stage and picked up the Lifetime Achievement Award from its display stand. "I do not think you will be needing this," I said, handing it to my father. "But maybe keep it as a reminder of who you used to pretend to be." We left through the front doors, the crowd parting again to let us through. Behind us, I could hear voices rising, questions being asked, the careful facade of the Reed family finally crumbling. Outside, the October air was cold and clean. Marcus was shaking, whether from adrenaline or relief I could not tell. "How do you feel?" I asked. "Terrified," he said, "and free. For the first time in 40 years, I feel free." Sarah took my hand. Marcus was on my other side. Together, we walked to our cars, leaving the chaos behind. The next morning, my father called. "What you did last night was unforgivable." "Funny. I was thinking the same thing about what you did for 40 years. You have destroyed us." The phone has not stopped ringing. People are demanding answers. The chamber wants the award back. "Good. Daniel, we are your parents. Whatever we did because we thought it was right." "No. You did it because you were ashamed. There is a difference. Your mother is devastated. She has not stopped crying. Then maybe she should call Marcus. Tell him she is sorry. See if he forgives her." That is exactly the point, Dad. You cannot undo 40 years with a phone call. You cannot apologize for erasing someone's existence. You can only face the consequences. So that is it? You are cutting us off. I am giving you the same choice you gave Marcus. You can have a relationship with us, both of us, on our terms. Or you can have nothing. But you do not get to have one without the other anymore. A long silence. I will talk to your mother, my father said finally. Talk to Marcus first. He is the one you need to convince. The weeks that followed were complicated. Not a clean resolution, not a Hollywood ending. Just the messy reality of a family trying to figure out what comes next. My parents reached out to Marcus, tentatively at first. A letter, a phone call, an invitation to dinner that Marcus declined. I am not ready, he told me. Maybe someday, but not yet. Take all the time you need. The community of Westbrook was split. Some people rallied around my parents, claiming the whole thing was exaggerated. A family dispute blown out of proportion. Others were horrified, pulling their children from committees my mother chaired, cutting business ties with my father's dealerships. The local paper ran a story. Then a regional outlet picked it up. Then a national magazine reached out, asking if Marcus would share his story. He thought about it for weeks before finally agreeing. I want people to know, he said, not for revenge, not for attention, but because there are other families out there doing the same thing. Hiding children they are ashamed of, erasing people who do not fit their image. And maybe if they hear my story, they will make a different choice. The article came out 3 months after the gala. It went viral, shared millions of times, sparking conversations about disability, shame, and the lengths people go to protect their reputations. Marcus became an accidental advocate, speaking engagements, interviews, a support group for adults who had been hidden by their families. He found purpose in the pain, meaning in the exposure. As for me, I found a brother. We talk every week now, sometimes about the heavy stuff, the shared trauma, the ongoing negotiations with our parents, but mostly about normal things, sports, movies, his dating life, tentative but hopeful. My studio, busier than ever after the publicity. My father eventually apologized. Not well, not completely, but enough to show he was trying. My mother wrote Marcus a letter that took her 6 drafts to get right, confessing everything, taking responsibility, asking for nothing in return. Marcus read the letter and cried. Then he put it in a drawer with the birthday card I made him when I was 2. I am not ready to forgive them, he said, but I am ready to stop hating them. That is a start. It is a start. The truth is, there is no neat ending to a story like this. No final confrontation where the villains are punished and the heroes ride off into the sunset. Just life continuing. Relationships slowly rebuilding. Wounds gradually healing. But there is one moment I keep coming back to. One image that stays with me. The night of the gala, after we left, after the chaos died down, Marcus and I sat in his car in the parking lot. Neither of us wanted to leave. Neither of us wanted the night to end. I have waited 40 years for this, Marcus said. 40 years of imagining what it would be like to meet you, to be seen by you, to be acknowledged by you. And, how does it feel? He looked at me, really looked, and despite the tears, despite everything, he smiled. Like coming home, he said. For the first time in my life, I feel like I am home. I hugged my brother. The first hug we had shared since I was 2 years old and did not know any better. Welcome home, Marcus, I whispered. Welcome home. Thank you for walking this journey with me. Before you go, I have left 2 more stories here on your screen. Both from men who discovered that family is not always who you are born to. It is who stands by you when the truth comes out. Click on whichever one calls to you. And if you want to join our community of people who understand what it is like to be the outsider looking in, that notification bell is your invitation. Until tomorrow, remember, your story matters, even if they tried to erase it.